Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps, and today I'm going to show you how to make these middle rounds with the squares on this Tunisian entrelac cowl. We're going to start by joining our next color in any one of these triangles right at the very top. So this stitch right here, this is the top stitch of the triangle. It's that first slip stitch we made as we came down. That's where we're going to join our new yarn. So I just grab the yarn and I pull up a loop, and that's it. I'm not doing a slip stitch or anything. I'm just pulling up a loop to start the new yarn, and I leave a tail to sew in later. So now we need to go down and pick up stitches in this angle of the triangle, and we're going to use these vertical bars to pick up the stitches just as if we were continuing on with another row. So let's find all of our vertical bars and pick up a loop in each one. So there's one loop on the hook already, so this is 2 loops, 3 loops, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then this 9th one is really easy to miss, but it's in there. Do you see that little vertical line? That's where we want to go, and it kind of like, when it puckers like that, it kind of hides. So you want to look for that one that's all by itself and pick that one up too. So now we have 9 loops on our hook. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Now the last thing we need to do is join it to this side of the triangle, and we're going to do that with a slip stitch. And now you're going to tell me, I have 9 loops on my hook, how on earth do I do a slip stitch? Well, the best way is to ignore these 8 loops and do a slip stitch the way you normally would. So a normal slip stitch, the actual definition of a slip stitch, is you insert your hook into the next stitch, and this is where we're going, this first stitch on this side of the triangle. You insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through the loop that's already on your hook. So that's exactly how we do a slip stitch here. It's just that we have extra loops on our hook. So all you do is ignore these 8 and do the slip stitch like you normally would. Insert your hook, pull up a loop, and pull that loop through the first loop on your hook. That's it. Now we do our return pass. This is called Tunisian simple stitch, and Tunisian stitches always have a forward pass and a return pass. So we've picked up loops, that's our forward pass, and now the return pass, we're going to work those loops off our hook. So for every single stitch as we go, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops on our hook. And that one's floppy, but that's because there's the tail there. Just yank on the tail a little bit. So now we have our first row in green, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 vertical bars plus the top of the stitch. That's perfect. That's what we want. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more here. There we go. So let's do another row. Pick up a loop in each of these vertical bars. Okay, we have 9 loops on our hook, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So now we do a slip stitch. There's our slip stitch. And then we go through all of these 2 at a time. Yarn over, pull through 2. And do it again. So there's 9 loops on my hook, and now we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, and then we have the return pass. And we just keep doing that all the way up this triangle, because as you can see, we picked up all these stitches, and now we're attaching 1 stitch at a time, 1 row at a time to each of these stitches. And that will give us our finished square. So we just keep going till we hit the top of the triangle. I've worked all the way to the end of this triangle, so now let's pause and count our rows and stitches. I'm going to count just the vertical bars, okay? So if we count just the vertical bars, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bars going this way, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bars going this way. We do have the top of the stitch here, but we'll also have the slip stitches going here. So that gives us 9. The slip stitches are the 9th one here, and the top edge of these stitches gives us 9 this way. And that's the same as what we have on the triangle. It's a little harder to see on the triangle, but if you look, that right there is my first vertical bar going up this way. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 vertical bars this way. And then when I go this way, I have 1, 2, well, let's do this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then that 8th one hiding in there. So 8 going that way. So now let's do our slip stitches to get back to this point of the triangle. So again, I'm going to just go into the vertical bars and do some slip stitches all the way down. We had 8 vertical bars, so I should have 8 slip stitches. And there's 8. Okay, so I've finished going through all the vertical bars. Now I need to connect back to here, and if I go right here, that puts me back at the top of this triangle, right where I was when I started my square on the other triangle. So let me do that slip stitch. There we go. And you can see that's the exact same spot where I joined here to start this square. So now I'm ready to start my next square, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing again, and I'm going to keep doing that all the way around, and then I'll come back to you at the end of the round and show you how to connect it. I finished my last square and I'm back to where I started. I did the slip stitches all the way down to come back down to the previous row. So the last final slip stitch that's going to connect it, just like it was in the previous round, is going to be in the same stitch where we started the round. So right here, if you look where this green is coming out of, right where we connected the green, that's where we're going to put our slip stitch. So right here, we just do a slip stitch, and that finishes the round. Now I'm done with my green, so I'm going to cut my green. And then I can just fasten it off. So that's my first row of diamonds done, or squares, however you want to look at them. And I can add as many rows like this as I want to. Just join the next color in the top of one of these squares and keep going the same way we did this one. So you can keep going for 2 more rows, you can keep going for 7 more rows. However tall you want your cowl to be, just keep going. When we're finished adding height to our cowl, we'll do another row of triangles at the top to fill this in and make it nice and flat. And that's what I'll show you in the next video. But for now, this is how you do the center section with the squares, or diamonds, whichever one you want to call them. I'm on my very last square, but before I finish it, I want to show you a couple of mistakes I made and how I corrected them without ripping the work out. Because, like for example, in this square, I made a mistake in this square, and I didn't notice it till I was already in this square. I would have had to rip out several yellow squares, plus almost a whole row of green squares to get back to that mistake. Now, if I was making this for somebody else, I probably would have ripped it out. But this is for me, and I don't think it's very noticeable, and it's not going to bother me. So I left it in there, and I'm going to show you how I fixed it. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, if you look at this green square, do you see where this line and this line, these 2 lines, got connected into one right here? See how there's one line here and there's one line here, but here there's only one between the 2 of them? Well, that happens when instead of pulling through 2 loops, I pulled through 3 loops by mistake. So that's a decrease, and it made it so that there's one less stitch in this square, which I didn't notice all the way until I got to this square. And then I tried to pick up my loops and I was counting and I didn't have enough. So what I did was in this one right here, which is directly above where this mistake was, so this and this, what I did here was I actually made an increase by picking up 2 loops in the same stitch directly above where I had made the decrease. So let me show you that one first. Let's work our way into the center a little bit, and I'm pretending I need to pick up a loop. I don't actually need to add a loop, but we're going to try it. So when you look at this vertical bar, okay, that's the front half of a loop. There is a back half to it that's tucked away under here. If I stick my hook in there and pull on it, there, see, I've pulled it out. I've pulled out the bottom of that loop. Now I'm going into the back of that and pull up a loop there, and then go into the front of it and pull up a loop there like normal. So now I've pulled up 2 loops into this one loop, and that's how I replace a stitch if I've accidentally lost a stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to undo that because I don't actually need that there, and I'm going to show you my other mistake. And for that I need to be at the end of a row. This is the second mistake I made. Actually, my mistake is in this square, but I didn't notice it all the way until I got to this square. It's a little more subtle, but if you notice, these 2 squares are bigger than the squares around them, right? They're a little bit taller. That's because I accidentally added a row. Right here, I accidentally slip stitched into the same space twice when I got to the end of the row. So what I ended up doing was putting 2 rows into the 1 stitch there. Not all that noticeable when this is going to be scrunched up around your neck, but annoying because it translates all the way through the next several squares. I corrected it here by doing a decrease, and that right there is my decrease. So I'm going to show you how to do that decrease. Here I have a few rows worked because I didn't want to put it right at the corner. So now I'm going to do the decrease. And it works very much like an invisible decrease in single crochet. It's the same sort of concept. What we're going to do is we're going to pull up the front loop from each of these 2 stitches. The front loop from the next 2 stitches instead of both loops from 1 stitch. Okay, so I'm going to put my hook into the front loop on this stitch and hopefully not split the yarn. There we go. And then I'm going to take my hook without doing anything else and put it right into the front loop of this stitch as well. So now I've got both front loops on my hook. Now I'm going to draw through the yarn and then finish my slip stitch here. And what that's done is that's taken those 2 rows and made it back into 1. So if I need to decrease, if I work too many rows, that's how I can decrease and get down by 1 row. So those are the 2 mistakes I made, and those are my tricks for fixing them. So I'll finish this square, and then that'll be it for the center portion where the diamonds or squares, whatever you want to call them, are. And then in the next video, I'll come back and show you how to do the edging. Thanks for watching.